My name is Thomas Ashford. I have served in the Royal Guard for 9 years, and in that time I have stood at gates, walked behind motorcades, watched doors that opened onto rooms I was never meant to enter. I have learned to look without seeing and to hear without listening. That is most of the job. The rest is silence. I am telling you this because what I'm about to say does not sound like a story a guard should tell. There are no shots fired in it. No one is saved from a knife. No crowd is held back. It is a quiet story, and for a long time I did not understand it. I'm not sure I understand all of it even now. But I have thought about Lady Eleanor Whitmore every autumn since, and I think the only way to be done thinking about her is to say it out loud. It began on a Tuesday in late October. I remember because the leaves in the courtyard were the color of old copper, and the wind had that thin edge to it. The kind that gets under a coat collar no matter how high you turn it up. I was called into the duty office at 7:30. My commanding officer, a man named Captain Reeves, did not look up from his papers when I came in. He never did. He had a habit of speaking to the desk. Ashford, he said, 4-day detail, private escort, Highgrove area. I waited. Lady Eleanor Whitmore, he said, widow, lives alone. You'll drive her where she needs to go and stand where she needs you to stand. That is all. Yes, sir. He looked up then, just for a second. She is private to the point of silence, Ashford. Do not try to fill it. No, sir. Good lad. I left the office with the file under my arm and read it in the car on the way down to Gloucestershire. There was not much in it. Lady Eleanor Whitmore, aged 34. Widowed 11 months ago. Husband was Lord Henry Whitmore. Died of a long illness. No children. Lived alone in the manor house near Tetbury Cross, a village I had driven past once or twice, but never stopped in. The file had one photograph of her, taken at her husband's memorial service. She was looking down. I could not see her eyes. I arrived at the manor a little before 10. It was a long, low house of grey stone, the kind that looks like it has grown out of the ground rather than been built on it. The gravel drive crunched under the wheels. A housekeeper met me at the door, an older woman with her hair pulled back so tightly it looked painful. She did not smile. She showed me to a small sitting room and told me Lady Eleanor would be down shortly. I stood by the window. There was a garden outside, mostly bare now, but someone had been tending it. The roses had been cut back properly. The paths were swept. Whoever did the work cared about it. I heard her before I saw her. Soft footsteps on the stairs, slow, not in any hurry. She came into the room wearing a dark green dress and a grey wool cardigan, and she had a leather notebook in her hand. Brown leather, old, the edges worn pale. She held it the way some people hold a prayer book. "Mr. Ashford," she said. "My lady, please sit." I did. She sat opposite me and put the notebook on her lap. She did not open it. She folded her hands on top of it, as if to keep it shut. "Captain Reeves tells me you are discreet," she said. "I try to be, my lady. That will do." She looked at me properly for the first time. Her eyes were grey like the stone of the house and very tired. Not sad, exactly. Tired in the way people are tired when they have been carrying something for a long time and have stopped expecting to put it down. "We will be going into the village this afternoon," she said. "I have errands. I would prefer it if you walked a few steps behind me and did not speak to anyone unless they speak to you. Is that acceptable?" "Of course, my lady. Thank you." She stood. The conversation was over. I had been in the house for perhaps 6 minutes. I went out to the car and waited. The housekeeper brought me a cup of tea on a tray, which surprised me. She set it on the bonnet without a word and went back inside. The tea was very strong and very hot, and I drank it standing up, watching the garden, thinking about the notebook on Lady Eleanor's lap and the way she had held it closed. That was the first day. Most of the first day was waiting. I would learn over the next 4 that most days with Lady Eleanor were waiting. She did not fill the air the way most people do. She moved through it carefully as though it might break. Tetbury Cross is the kind of village that has one of everything. One post office, one bakery, one pub, one church with a low square tower, and a graveyard that runs down to a stream. We drove in just after 2 o'clock. Lady Eleanor sat in the back of the car with the notebook on the seat beside her. She had not opened it. I was beginning to think she never did. I parked near the church and came round to open her door. She got out slowly and stood for a moment looking down the village street. Then she nodded, more to herself than to me, and began walking. I followed at the distance she had asked for. 3 paces, maybe 4. Close enough to be there, far enough not to be in the way. The first person who came out was the man from the bakery. He was older, perhaps 70, with flour on his apron and his sleeves rolled up despite the cold. He saw her from across the street and his face changed. He crossed without looking for cars. "My lady," he said. "My lady, please, a word." She stopped. She turned to face him with that same calm I would come to know very well over the next few days. "Not warm, not cold, just present, Mr. Hollis," she said. "My wife," he said. His voice cracked a little. "My Margaret, the hospital bill, we could not have paid it. We were going to lose the shop, my lady, and then it was paid. They told us at the hospital. Someone had paid it. Anonymous, they said. But we knew it was you." She let him finish. She did not interrupt. When he was done, she said, very quietly, "Mr. Hollis, I am so glad to hear your wife is recovering, but I am afraid you have mistaken me for someone else. I did not pay that bill." He blinked at her. He had not been expecting that. "My lady, please, there is no one else." "It was you. I know it was you." "It was not me, Mr. Hollis. But I'm very glad for Margaret. Please give her my regards." She nodded to him kindly and walked on. I followed. I did not look back at Mr. Hollis, but I could feel him standing there in the street, holding his apron in his hands. I had seen a great many things in 9 years of service. I had not often seen a man look more confused. Lady Eleanor went into the post office. She bought stamps. She came out. She went into the bakery. She bought a small brown loaf and a packet of biscuits. She did not look at the baker, who was Mr. Hollis's son. He did not look at her either. He served her in silence. The transaction was strange. It was the strangeness of a room where a question has just been asked, and no one has answered it. We drove back to the manor in silence. I watched her in the mirror. She was looking out of the window at the hedgerows going past. Her face was perfectly composed. The notebook was on the seat next to her. She had not touched it. When we got back, I helped her out of the car and she paused on the gravel. "Mr. Ashford, my lady, thank you for not asking." I did not know what to say to that. I nodded. She went inside. That night I sat in the small room they had given me above the stables, and I wrote in my own notebook. The small black one I keep for duty notes. I wrote, "She denied it. He believed her, but only just. There will be more of this." I did not know how right I was. The next morning was Wednesday. We went into Tetbury Cross again. Lady Eleanor said she wanted to visit the churchyard. She asked me to wait at the gate. I watched her walk down between the headstones. She knew exactly where she was going. She stopped at one of the newer graves, a clean grey stone near the back wall, and she stood there for a long time. I could not see her face. I could see her shoulders, which did not move. She was not crying. She was just standing. After perhaps 15 minutes, she opened the notebook. I saw her do it from the gate. It was the first time I had seen the notebook open. She held it in both hands and she read from it, very quietly, her lips moving. I could not hear what she said. She turned a page. She read more. She closed the notebook and put it back under her arm and walked back up to the gate. "Thank you for waiting," she said. "Of course, my lady." We left. On the way out of the churchyard, a young woman was coming in with a small child on her hip. She saw Lady Eleanor and her face lit up in the way faces only light up when they have been waiting a long time to say something. "My lady, oh my lady, please. I have been hoping I would see you." Lady Eleanor stopped. The young woman put the child down and took both of Lady Eleanor's hands in her own. The child stared up at me with enormous round eyes, the way children do at men in dark coats. "It was you, wasn't it?" the young woman said. "The bags, the food, every Friday morning? I opened the door and they're there. It was you." "I am sorry," Lady Eleanor said. "It was not me. My lady, please. I just want to say thank you. That is all. Just let me say it." "You may thank whoever it is," Lady Eleanor said gently, "but it is not me. I am sorry. I wish it were. I am glad someone is helping you." She pressed the young woman's hand once and walked on. The young woman stood holding her child and watching her go. The child waved at me. I did not wave back. I am not supposed to. In the car, I sat in the driver's seat for a moment before I started the engine. Lady Eleanor was in the back. The notebook was on her lap. "Mr. Ashford, my lady, you are wondering." "I'm not, my lady. You are. It is all right. Most people would." She did not say anything more. I started the engine. That afternoon, a third person stopped her on the steps of the post office. A schoolteacher, a thin man with spectacles. He wanted to thank her for the roof of the village school, which had been replaced over the summer with a grant from an anonymous donor. He had been waiting weeks to catch her in the village, he said. He had a letter from the children. He held it out to her. "I did not arrange the roof, Mr. Penley," she said. "Please give the letter to whoever did. I am sure they would be glad of it. My lady, the only person it could be is you." "It is not, Mr. Penley. I am very sorry." She would not take the letter. He stood on the steps holding it as she walked away. I followed her. As we passed him, I saw his face. He was not angry. He was hurt. He was a man who had brought a gift and had it refused, and he did not understand why. That night at the manor, the housekeeper brought me my supper on a tray. She set it down and lingered, which she had not done before. "They mean no harm, Mr. Ashford," she said. "The villagers, I am sure they do not, Mrs. Harlow. She does it to be kind. You should know that. She is a kind woman." I looked up at her. Mrs. Harlow's face was set, the way it always was, but her eyes were not. "I am sure she is, Mrs. Harlow." She nodded once and went out. I sat with my supper for a long time before I ate it. On Thursday morning, the newspaper arrived. The housekeeper brought it in and set it down on the breakfast table with the corners squared. Lady Eleanor was already there, with her tea. She looked at the front page, and her hand stopped halfway to the cup. I was standing by the door. I'm not supposed to read what nobles read. But the paper was facing me, and I could see the headline. It said, "Tetbury's Sealant Angel, the noblewoman, will not take the praise." There was a small photograph of her, taken in the village, walking away from the camera with me 3 paces behind. She read the article without picking the paper up. Her eyes moved across it slowly. When she had finished, she folded the paper in half, and then in half again, and set it aside. "Mr. Ashford, my lady, we will not be going into the village today." "Yes, my lady." She did not come out of her sitting room for most of the morning. I stood in the hall. Mrs. Harlow brought me a chair eventually, and I sat in it. I have stood through longer mornings, but not many. At around 11, a car came up the drive. It was a small black car, the kind reporters hire when they do not want to be noticed and have not yet learned that the kind of car you choose is the first thing that gives you away. A young man got out. He had a notebook of his own and a coat that was too thin for the weather. He came up to the door and rang the bell. I answered it because Mrs. Harlow was upstairs. "I'm here to see Lady Whitmore," he said. "Lady Whitmore is not receiving visitors. I've come down from London, from the Chronicle. I just need a few minutes. Lady Whitmore is not receiving visitors. Look, please, the story is going national tomorrow. She should have a chance to respond before it does." I looked at him. He was very young. He was probably good at his job. He was definitely cold. "I will pass on your message," I said. "Please wait by your car." I closed the door. I went to the sitting room and knocked. Yes, I opened the door. She was standing by the window with her back to me. The notebook was in her hand. "A reporter, my lady, from the Chronicle. He says the story is going national tomorrow." She did not turn around. She was very still. "Thank you, Mr. Ashford. Please tell him I have nothing to say." "Yes, my lady." I told him. He gave me a card and asked me to pass it on. I put it in my pocket. He drove away. That evening, after supper, I went out to do my round of the grounds. It was nearly dark. The wind had dropped, and there was a thin mist coming up off the lawn. I walked the perimeter the way I had been trained, and when I came round to the rose garden, I stopped. Lady Eleanor was sitting on the stone bench at the end of the path. She had no coat on. Her shoulders were shaking. I should have walked away. A guard does not see a noble cry. That is one of the unwritten rules. You see, and you do not see. I did not walk away. I do not know why. I walked up to the bench, very slowly, so she would hear me coming. And I stopped a few paces off. I did not sit down. I just stood there. She did not look up. "If they keep writing about me, Mr. Ashford," she said, "they will find him." And he asked me not to let them. I did not ask who. I did not say anything. She had the notebook open on her lap. I could see, in the last of the light, that there was handwriting on the pages, very neat, in dark ink, Not her handwriting. I had seen her sign for the post that morning. This was someone else's hand. He asked me not to let them, she said again, more to the garden than to me. After a while she closed the note. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, the way a child does. She stood up. "Thank you, Mr. Ashford, my lady." She went inside. I stood in the rose garden until the mist had risen to my knees. I did not understand what she had said, but I understood that I had been told something I was not meant to be told, and that I was now meant to carry it, and that I would. Friday morning, a second car came up the drive. It was a long black car, much older than the reporters, and the man who got out of it was old too. He was perhaps 70, in a heavy overcoat and a hat, and he carried a leather case. He walked up to the door the way a man walks who has walked up to that door 100 times. He did not ring the bell. Mrs. Harlow opened it before he reached it. "Mr. Bramwell," she said. "Mrs. Harlow, she is expecting you." He came in. He did not look at me. He went straight through to the study at the back of the house, and the door closed behind him. I stood in the hall, where I had been told to stand. The hall was quiet. Mrs. Harlow went into the kitchen. I could hear the kettle. The door of the study did not close all the way. It never did. The latch was old, and the frame was crooked, and it always sat open by perhaps half an inch. I had noticed this on my first day. I had not thought about it again until now. I could hear them. I could not help hearing them. The hall was small and the house was quiet, and their voices, while low, were clear enough. "It has gone too far, Eleanor," the old man said. "The newspaper is the end of it. We must stop. We cannot stop." He said 5 years. He did not know it would become this. He knew what he was doing. Mr. Bramwell, he always knew what he was doing. That is why he asked you and not me. "Eleanor, I will not break it. Not for a London paper. Not for any of it." There was a long silence. The hospital bill, the old man said. The roof, the grocery deliveries. The scholarship for the Penley boy. The repair of the church wall. All of it under the sealed fund, as instructed. All anonymous. All as he wrote it. Yes, and they think it is you. Yes, and you have denied every one. Yes, because if you accept the credit, the trail leads to the will, and the will leads to the fund, and the fund leads to him. And he did not want his name on any of it. He did not want his name on any of it. Another silence. I could hear the clock in the hall. "He was a good man, Eleanor. I know he was. You are doing what he asked. I am trying. They are calling you cold in the papers. They are calling you proud. I know what they are calling me, Mr. Bramwell. It is not fair. It does not need to be fair. It needs to be done. He asked me to let him be forgotten. I am letting him be forgotten. That is all." I stepped back from the door. I went and stood at the front window where I had been told to stand. I do not know how long I stood there. The kettle went off in the kitchen. Mrs. Harlow took it off. The hall was quiet again. Mr. Bramwell came out of the study after perhaps half an hour. He nodded to Mrs. Harlow. He did not look at me. He went out to his car and drove away. Lady Eleanor did not come out of the study for a long time after that. When she did, she walked past me in the hall with the notebook in her hand, and she stopped at the foot of the stairs. "Mr. Ashford, my lady." "Tomorrow morning early, the churchyard." "Yes, my lady." "Thank you." She went upstairs. We left at dawn on Saturday. The mist was still in the fields and the sky was the color of pewter. She sat in the back with the notebook on her lap. She had brought fresh flowers, white ones, wrapped in brown paper. The car smelled of them. I parked by the churchyard gate. I came round to open her door. She got out and stood for a moment with her face turned up to the cold air. Then she nodded, the way she always did, and walked through the gate. I stood at the gate. She had not asked me to come with her. She had not asked me to stay either, but I knew where I was meant to be. She walked down between the headstones. She knew the way. She stopped at the grey stone near the back wall, and she knelt down and put the flowers on the grave. She arranged them carefully. She took her time. She did not rush. Then she sat back on her heels and she opened the notebook. I could not hear her from the gate. I could see her in the grey light, reading, turning pages, reading. Her lips were moving. She read for a long time. The mist was rising off the stream at the bottom of the churchyard, and the birds were beginning to call in the yew trees by the wall. After perhaps half an hour, she closed the notebook. She rested her hand on the headstone. Just for a moment, the way you might rest your hand on the shoulder of someone you love. Then she stood up and walked back to the gate. She stopped in front of me. She had the notebook in her hand, his handwriting. She said, "Names, amounts, the work he wanted done, he wrote it in the last months." He gave it to Mr. Bramwell. He asked me to read it back to him every morning, so he would know it was being done, even after. I did not say anything. I read it every morning, Mr. Ashford. I have read it every morning for 11 months. I will read it every morning for 4 more years, and then it will be finished, and so will he. I looked at her. I looked at the notebook in her hand. "My lady," I said, "I will not tell anyone. I know you will not," she said. "That is why I told you." She walked past me to the car. I closed the gate behind us. I drove her home. The newspaper story ran the following Monday. It called her cold. It called her proud. It said she was a woman who would not even accept the thanks of a village that loved her. It said no one knew why. She read it at breakfast. She folded it in half and in half again. She drank her tea. She did not say anything. My detail ended that Tuesday. I packed my bag in the room above the stables, and I came down to the hall to take my leave. She was standing at the foot of the stairs. The notebook was in her hand. "Mr. Ashford, my lady, thank you for your service, my lady." She held out her hand. I shook it. Her hand was small and cold. "Goodbye, Mr. Ashford. Goodbye, my lady." I drove out through the gate and down the lane. I did not look back. I am not supposed to. I have thought about Lady Eleanor every autumn since. I'm thinking about her now. I do not know if she has finished reading the notebook. By my count, she has perhaps another year to go. I imagine her on cold mornings in the churchyard at Tetbury Cross, kneeling by the grey stone, reading to a man who cannot hear her. I imagine the village still calling her cold. I imagine her letting them. I have stood at gates for 9 years. I have learned to look without seeing and to hear without listening. I have learned also that some things you are not meant to see you see anyway, and that you are meant to carry them and not put them down. I think now that goodness is not always loud. I think the loudest goodness is often somebody else's. I think the quietest kind, the kind that wears no name, the kind that lets itself be called cold, so that a dead man can be left in peace, that kind is the rarest, and I have only seen it once. And I saw it because a woman in a grey cardigan let me stand a few paces behind her for 4 days in late October. She did not save anyone from a knife. No one was pulled from a burning room. There was nothing in those 4 days that a guard would write up in a report. But I think about her every autumn. And I think I will, for as long as the leaves keep going the color of old copper and the wind keeps having that thin edge to it, and there are still graveyards in small villages where somebody somewhere is kneeling in the cold and reading from a notebook nobody else will ever see. My name is Thomas Ashford. I have served in the Royal Guard for 9 years. This is the only story from those years I have ever told, and I have told it now.